So imagine you rule a massive empire that has reigned for over 3 centuries. You rule over massive parts of Asia and Europe. You are thought to be one of the most powerful states in existence. Yet, in less than a week, this all comes to an end, and you, your daughters, your wife, and your son are murdered, stabbed, and shot to death in a basement. The group that did this, almost unheard of. This is the start of a new era for Russia. The events between the dates of October 25th, 1917 to November 2nd, 1917 were some of the most important days in the history of Russia. The Bolsheviks had taken Moscow. They were ready to rain terror on the Russian continent, the Russian country, for the next 60 years. Now, as a lover of history, the events of the Russian Revolution are exciting, extremely interesting, and enthralling to me to know that they changed literally the course of history. Now, what we're going to cover in the next 3-4 minutes is what really started the revolution, what went on during the revolution, and what was the aftermath. What happened after, and what really was the damage that they did to Russia and its empire. So, to start out with, the Russian people, they were fed up. After World War One, hundreds of thousands of men had died, leaving almost no help for people to work and harvest the fields in Russia, so the people were starving. The czarist government was outdated, and people were just tired of it. The inefficiency and just people were starving, and they were fed up with the monarchy and the old ways of doing things. So this led to multiple revolutions leading up to the main October Revolution, and just really the downfall of a massive empire. 3 centuries of one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. So, now what really happened during the revolution is one of the most important things we have to talk about. The main party, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, one of the biggest political and social figures of the early 20th century, led the Bolsheviks into this revolution. They took Moscow from the days of 1917, October 25th, 1917 to November 2nd. And, they had this one revolution in July, the July Revolution, that was unsuccessful, but ultimately it led to their success in the October Revolution of 1917. July 1917, the revolution did not work out, but it did finally, when the time came, it was just right in October. Counterattacks against the revolution just were not successful. It was just the right time, and they were basically immune to all military attacks and attempts to overthrow the revolution that would change the country. Now, they took Moscow. They went against the provisional government, and they changed the fabric of Russia and the whole country in days. Fighting in the streets of Moscow ended within days, and the country was under the rule of the Bolsheviks and their political party. Now, what was the aftermath? The aftermath. What really happened after the revolution and the fall of this empire, the fall of Tsarist Russia? So, the Bolsheviks, for one, arrested all of their opposing political parties. They signed a treaty with Germany, writing them out of World War One. They finally pulled out of World War One. Russia was out. This was a decision that was heavily favored by the people of Russia. And they started to establish a communist government, the first one the world had ever seen. And this was completely new. And, for the next 60 years, they reigned terror on Russia, caused suffering and oppression to the people, forcing communist ideals that ultimately did not work. Now, to close, all power to the Soviets. Russia's leader now, new leader, Vladimir Lenin's famous slogan, all power to the Soviets. These words that inspired a revolution. They inspired the people to rise up against Tsarist Russia.